Hello, my beautiful people. This is Archer Avalon, and this is Eternal Life Church. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you how to be a godly father. And I'm going to start off by saying this is going to be an interesting topic because I am doing this off the cuff. And this is a very, very important subject. And I hope that, I pray to God that I can give you as much as I can here in this video that's going to show you how to be a godly, awesome father. Now, first I want to say that being a father is not easy, nor is being a mother. And the fact that they're not is important because it actually helps you to grow. If you become a father or when you become a father, it is a very, very important day. First thing that I'll say is that being a father, it's a covenant. And what's a covenant? A covenant is an agreement or an understanding or a relationship between you, another living person, in this case a child, or a man or a woman, and God. So in this case, it's you, your child, and God. So it's a lifetime connection. And realizing that is very important. Second thing I'll say is that you need to adopt the philosophy that your child is your property. Now, when I say that, I do not stand for slavery in any way. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I am very anti-slavery. I am very pro-freedom, I'm pro-love, and I'm pro-righteousness. So in no way am I saying, you are, your children are your slaves. No, not in any way. But as a father, you need to realize that you are responsible for them. And, sorry, we're having a set malfunction here. Okay, I just got to stay away from my black backdrop. Where was I? Oh, yes. Children and property. They are your property. Why classically in the Western world do children take the last name of their father? We're in more modern times now, and a lot of women want to, keep their own identity and keep their last name. But still, the children will generally take the father's last name. And I stand for that because I believe that the children are the property of the father until they are of age to take care of their own affairs, to start living their own life and taking responsibility for their own actions. And I didn't make up this concept. I got this from Pope Leo the 13th's encyclical entitled Rerum Novarum. And I know some people don't like the popes, but there have been good popes in the past. And the Roman Catholic Church, say what you will about it, it does serve a good purpose, and it's helped people out. And I don't attend Catholic churches on a regular basis. I go maybe once every 5 years. And I don't want to get into Christian politics in any way. But there are good people within the Catholic Church. There are good Catholic people. So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's important for you as a father to take full responsibility of your children and realize that they are an extension of you. And if your children are acting up, it's not necessarily their fault. It could potentially be your fault. And being a father is a new step up from just being a husband, in that now you have to not just lead your wife, you need to lead your children as well. So it's very important for you to take on that responsibility and to say, these children, they are my property, and I'm not going to let anyone or anything come between me and my children. And taking that responsibility, it means that you have to provide for them. So if you are in perhaps a spot where you're not generating much income, if you're not helping out the world enough in order to get to generate a living for yourself, then you need to work on that. Okay. So being a provider is very important, but then also too, you need to be able to be at home and say, yeah, I love my kids and this is great to be at home, and I need to teach them and guide them and help them to grow. So approaching each of your children from the perspective of they're each an individual and I have to forge a relationship with them individually is important, and not playing favorites. Playing favorites, it's not a good thing to do. It's going to create challenges that exist beyond your lifespan. And you don't want to have your kids fighting each other over things that maybe you left behind. But we're talking about legacy there. We're talking about trusts, and we're talking about heirs and things like that. And that's like more like estate planning conversation. We're talking about the nuts and bolts, the ins and outs of getting your child from its first breath to age 18, where hopefully maybe he or she goes off to college. You're able to get them to the point where they're married, they're on their own, they're self-sufficient, and they're having a happy and healthy life. So being a good father, it actually starts before you even conceive of a child, right? It starts before you get married. It starts before, you really need to start thinking about it and start doing some family planning long before you have kids. So I think that the first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out how you're going to earn a living. There's much more to manhood than providing, but it's a great feeling that men have to be able to provide. Why do we have these legends of Santa Claus? What is Santa Claus? He's like the ultimate provider. This guy is like, he's the bomb, right? He freaking rides around in the sky with these magical reindeer. He does need to work on his weight, but despite that weight, he's able to, get down into the house and give all sorts of awesome presents, right? So at the core of all men is a provider. So you need to figure out how to provide, and figuring out what you love to do and continuing to do it, and trying to figure out a way of how you can maximize that value that you create through your work so that you can support a family. And this does not mean that you have to be a millionaire at all. I talk about this in my first book, The Sex Education You Never Received, what's the term? I have a term for it. It's called the provider trap. There are lots of men that think, I just have to provide. I have to provide, and that's all they do. They're great providers, but when they get home, it's like they're an empty shell, and they're perhaps not ruling the roost. As a man, as a father, you have to develop this concept of personal authority. And this doesn't mean that you know everything. This doesn't mean that you control a major corporation or whatever. It means that when you're at home, you are the leader of your home. You are the king of your castle. And your castle could be a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, little ranch in the middle of some regular old town in the middle of the United States of America, in Australia, in wherever, in jolly old England. Doesn't matter. You are the king of that particular kingdom. And that kingdom could be 10,000 square feet, including your yard. You are personal authority. This means that you are the leader. You take responsibility for everything, and you take influence from your wife. And I think building that relationship, having a strong friendship with your wife is very important. And that strong relationship will serve as a example for your children. So that's also important. So it starts with, what am I going to do to earn a living? What kind of woman am I going to have in my life? And again, I talk about this in my book, The Sex Education You Never Received. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, and I actually should go back and put the link to it in all of my other past videos. So, you guys can get access to it because it's very important. I think a lot of people today don't realize how important their reproductive powers are and what sort of impact that has. Because again, well, I haven't mentioned it in this video yet, but the challenge is that there is a large media corporations, a front of very powerful and I believe satanic people. I don't even want to call them people. I'm just going to call them demons that want you to fail. They want to profit off of your pain. They want you to knock up some chick. They want her to go on welfare. They want you to produce these kids that are totally messed up so that they can use that child's bond, earn money off the bonds. The judges, they want to earn money off of them. The public defenders, the attorneys, they want to earn money off them. Unfortunately, there are entities that call themselves human beings in this world, on this earthly plane, that want to profit off of your pain. And as a father, you need to be aware of this. Read this book. It helps. Definitely helps. This is your anchor, your spiritual, your mental, and physical anchor. And this should guide you throughout everything else. This doesn't mean that this is all that you should read. God is much bigger than this book, right? God is much bigger than this book. He is much bigger than anything. But this is a great way to know him. This is a great start. But just knowing this book in and of itself is not going to be enough. You, as a father, need to learn how to get back to God through meditation, through spiritual practices. But your Bible is a good start. You should read this thing all the way through. That's another thing that a good father does. He knows this book. There's that old movie, the Fiddler on the Roof, and one of the songs, I think it goes, a good mother makes it easy for the father to read the good book. And they're talking about the Torah. But there's reality to that. You need to study this book. You need to know this book. And there have been men in my life that knew this book that I thank God for them, because they stood as good, solid examples for me. They were mentors for me. And, even my dad, who might say, well, he might be so humble and say, oh, I didn't really do much, I never, did this or that. Or you might have thought, well, I didn't live a very good Christian life, but he did, he took me to church. He probably took me to church, before the age of 12. He probably took me to church more times than anybody else. So, thank you, Dad, for that, and I love you. Just having this book, you don't necessarily have to go to church. What is church? I mean, it's a collection of people. But really, the main thing is to connect with God and to teach your kids. That's another thing. To raise your children under with the admonishment of God, with the respect and the love for God. And this doesn't mean that you have to push your religious beliefs on them. Just be a good example. Instead of preaching the gospel to your kids, just live the gospel for your kids, right? And another key thing about being a good father is that your children, you have to realize that your children want to please you. They want external validation. That's what kids want. They love it. They need to know that they are helping out. And this starts very early. There's a book called The Continuum Concept that I think basically says, children, babies, they're already very social. They want to connect and they want to help. Even though they're maybe little and they can't do anything, they still want to be a part of everything, right? So realize that your kids, they want to please you. And when your children act up, it means that they're not getting the attention that they need. And it's a need. Children need attention. There is that old saying that I think comes from, the Hebrew tradition that says, love doesn't equal attention, or attention doesn't equal love. No, it doesn't. But attention is really important for children in their formative years, maybe say up until, let's just say till 12 years old. And some people might say, oh, you're babying these kids, blah, blah, blah. Even adults still need attention. And I think you'll find that maybe the adults that didn't get that recognition as children, they're still trying to get, God love them, they're still trying to get that attention, that validation as adults. And I think that the more challenging a child's upbringing, the more trauma or fear that they experienced as a child, the more they're going to turn to things in the external world to try to numb that pain, that psychological pain. And that's why we have things like drugs, alcohol, improper use of sex, shopping, gambling, what have you. Even work can be an addictive thing. So as a father, you need to realize that they love you and they want you and they're acting up because they need some attention, right? Or there's some need that's not being filled. And so this means that you don't need to hit your kids ever. You never need to hit your kids, ever. You never need to spank your kids. You never need to use any sort of physical violence against your kids. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because trauma ejects the soul from the body. People think, oh boy, it would really suck to fall from a plane and die. Well, sure, it would. But your soul would eject from the body before you hit the ground. You'd black out. And I think that's what a blackout is when the soul leaves the body. It's like, whoop, whoop, we're checking out. This is not good. We're ejecting, right? So the soul ejects, boom, the body goes through the pain, and then there's the out-of-body experience, and then the soul goes back to heaven, and, there's the near-death experiences. Sometimes people come back and they're like, oh, wow, what did I experience? That was awesome. You guys, you're never going to believe this, right? So when if you spank your kids, it opens them up to demonic attack, and you don't want that for your kids. You don't want your kids possessed by demons, do you? No. So you don't need to use physical violence with your kids. That's another key to being a good father. So, and now another thing, what is your mission? Do you have a mission? Do you have a mission? Like, do you know what your mission is? Maybe your mission is to simply go to work for 40 years and provide. If that's it, do it. Do it to the best of your abilities. If your mission is to, say, to be a plumber, and to be a plumber, and maybe you work for another company, and you're, maybe one of 15 plumbers at a fairly large company. If that's what you do, that's a good trade. That's a good line of work. You can make a good living doing that. Do that to your best of your abilities. Maybe you don't like them. Maybe you don't like the company. Maybe you feel like, the owner has been good to you, but maybe you've outgrown the owner and you can see some ways that you can improve the business, and maybe they're not providing it for you. So you go out on your own. You start your own plumbing company, right? That's good. that's a good line of work. That's your mission. And your mission might change, but you need to be the navigating sea captain of your family, of your wife, of your children, and be on a mission, right? I'm not telling you that it's easy, but I'm telling you that you can master it and you can figure it out and you can become like the great father that the kids love. And try not to wrap up your idea of what your kids should be. Let God figure that out. Let God figure out what your child should be. Let them figure out what they should be. Just because maybe you have a certain trait, it doesn't mean that your children have to have this certain trait, right? Just try to be there and accept them for who they are. And realize, one last thing, realize that a good father seeks to love his children unconditionally, like God loves us unconditionally. One of I think the biggest lies, and I'll call it a lie because I think this was something that was created to keep us in check, to keep us in order. That lie is that there's a hell waiting for us in the afterlife. And that if we don't get it all right in this life, that's it. We're going to spend an eternity burning in hell. In hell, I tell you. That's not true at all. I mean, we go to heaven, and depending on what things we've done here on earth and what things we've been thinking about all the time, we got to come back. We got to come back to school and learn, right? Our soul learns here. But our Father, who loves us unconditionally, he knows us better than anyone else. He created us. He would never throw us into an eternal flame burning, right? I mean, I can tell you as a father, my child, who I love dearly, has, done some things to screw up. And, she's not perfect. None of us are. Why are we here? We're here to perfect ourselves. But I've never been so angry at her that even like the worst tantrum that maybe she's ever had, I have never once ever considered taking her and throwing her into an oven and like cranking up the heat. Why would our perfect, loving, all-powerful, all-knowing Heavenly Father who created us, why would he want to do that to us? He wouldn't. It's silly. But like these are the beliefs that keep people enslaved. And I mentioned this, I think, in my numerology video that this book kind of but I'm not blaming the book, because if you read the book, there's nowhere in this book. I challenge somebody to show me like the most convincing verse that hell exists. In the King James Version of the Bible, you go and find me something that says, a verse in here that says, hell is a place where souls go in the afterlife and spend the eternity of their existence suffering in flames. It doesn't exist. Jesus definitely talks about hell, but hell is a condition of mind. I'd love to tell you that I'm never going to experience hell again, but like my teacher, Yogananda, and Jesus knew this too, is that we're in hell now. You look around, I mean, it's not a terrible place, but the reality is that eventually, like there's pain and suffering here. I've got a ding on my thumb here. I don't know if you can see it, but it hurts, we're in this body that can live for a very long time, but eventually we have to leave it. And we're in this material world where pain is part of the curriculum. Suffering is not, however, but pain definitely is. Good luck trying to live a life that's free of pain. You will not be able to do it, because that's where we are. So I think that's the last thing. Try to love your children unconditionally, and just know that you don't have to, you're not a bad dad if you run into tough times and maybe you're not bringing in as much money as you should. That's okay. Life has these natural vicissitudes of, highs and lows. The best thing that you can do is just to adopt the concept of perpetual good humor, and I think you're going to do all right. So hopefully those things help you. I'm going to end the video here, and by no means is this video like the end all be all, but if you found value in it, hey, share it. Would you also, leave a comment or a question below, and consider subscribing. I need to get this message out to more people, okay? So as always, the light in me honors the light in you. Peace, and may God love you. Bye-bye.